All right, good morning. So today we're in lesson 17. Okay, and this is finding equivalent fractions. So in lesson 16, we learned that equivalent fractions name the same amount of the whole. So in this lesson, you'll learn more about finding equivalent fractions. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the problem that is in the yellow. So it reads, Izzy's mom baked a cake. She put chocolate frosting on half of the cake and vanilla frosting on half of the cake. Then Izzy's mom cut the cake into fourths. What fraction other than 1/2 names part of the cake that has chocolate frosting? So we need to find an equivalent fraction for 1/4. I'm sorry, 1/2, excuse me. We need to find another fraction for 1/2. So let's look at this picture first off. So it says, look at the picture above. What fraction of the cake has chocolate frosting? Well, right here is the line that divides the chocolate frosting from the vanilla frosting. So if we cut this rectangle or this cake in half, we have half chocolate and half vanilla. So this fraction is 1/2. Half of the cake is chocolate frosting. So let's move on to B. How many equal parts should the cake be divided into to show fourths? So if we're going to cut the cake into fourths, okay, the answer is in the word. So in the word, we have 4 right here. So we're going to cut the cake into 4 equal parts. C. On the picture above, draw lines to divide the cake into fourths. Each fourth should have all chocolate or all vanilla frosting. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to cut it in half right here. Okay. So we cut the cake into fourths. Okay. So here, straight up and down. Okay. And then we split it all the way right here. So now this cake is split into fourths. So how many fourths of the cake have chocolate frosting? Well, here's 1/4, and here's another 1/4. So 1/4 and another 1/4, that is 2/4. So we have 2/4 of the cake is chocolate. So let's look at this problem for E. Did the amount of cake with chocolate frosting change? Explain how you know that 1/2 of the cake is the same amount as 2/4 of the cake. So real quick, it did not change the amount of frosting. Okay, I want you to think right now, and why did it not change the amount of the frosting? I'll give you a couple seconds. All right, so 1/2 is the same as 2/4 because the same amount of the cake is shaded. The only thing that changed was how many pieces the cake was cut into. Okay, so here we have 1/4 of the cake. Okay, and we also have 1/4 of the cake. Okay, so 1/4 and 1/4, that is 1/4 and 1/4, that's 2/4 of the cake. But it's also 1/2 of the cake if you cut it up and down. So we cut it up and down. That's half of the cake, okay? But you can also cut it just like we did with the 1/4, where you have it up and down, but you also have it this way. Okay. All right. So let's go over here to the find out more section. Okay. So I'm just going to read this to you and I just want you to follow along. In the last lesson, you compared 2 models to understand equivalent fractions. The models were the same size, but they had a different number of equal parts. You named the fraction shown in one model. Then you looked at the other model to find the fraction that named the same amount. You can also find equivalent fractions by dividing the same model in different ways. The cake Izzy's mom made already showed 1/2. You may have drawn lines in one of the ways below to show fourths. Okay, you could have done it one of the ways below to show fourths. So if you look at these three, okay, we have 1, 2, and we have 3. Okay, if you look at these, you're gonna notice that they're cut into different ways. Now, are they still good ways? Like, can you still do this? Yes. Okay, because this is cut how we cut it right here. We cut it into fourths like this. But you could also cut it down the middle because that's half. Then you can also cut each half into halves. Over here, you can also cut it down the middle to cut it in half. But then you have squares, so you can cut them into little triangles. Okay, and they are still going to be equally divided. So no matter how you did it, you just have to make sure that they are equal in size. Because remember, we cannot compare fractions that are not equal in size. Each of these different ways of making fourths show 2/4 of the cake has chocolate frosting. Here's 1/4, 2/4, 1/4, 2/4, 1/4, 2/4. Okay. Remember, you can look at different equal size parts on a number line to find equivalent fractions. The number line below shows that 1/2 is equivalent to 2/4. So if you look here, our number line starts at 0 and ends at 1. So the red one is cut into equal parts. Okay, so the red is cut right here. Okay, so then this is one equal part and this is the second equal part. Okay, so now this is 1/2. But we can also cut the shape into fourths. Okay, so this is 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, and then 1 would be 4/4. So if we look here, we see that 1/2 and 2/4 are on the same exact spot on the number line. If two fractions are on the same spot on the number line, that means they are equivalent. Now, I just want you to take a second to reflect on what we just talked about. So, for number 1, for the reflect, it says, Izzy's mom now wants to cut the cake into 8ths. Explain how to figure out how many 8ths of the cake have chocolate frosting. So, I want to give you a couple seconds just to try to figure this out on your own. If I want to cut the cake into 8ths, how many equal parts am I going to cut the cake into? Correct, we're going to cut it into 8 equal parts. So how can you figure out how many 8ths of the cake have chocolate frosting? Go ahead and figure this out. I'll give you a couple seconds. All right, so one way that you could do this is you could divide each fourth into 2 equal pieces to make 8ths. Okay, and then you can count how many 8ths are shaded. Okay, so you can do that for the model, but you can also do it with the number line, and you can cut the number line into 8ths. Okay, so if you cut the number line into 8ths, you have 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, 5/8, 6/8, 7/8, 8/8. So this would be 4/8, the same exact spot on the number line. So our answer would be 4/8 are shaded. All right, I hope you have a great rest of the day.